We're really excited about it because we have with us Francesc Miraes, the award-winning and internationally best-selling author of books on how to live well. Alongside Hector Garcia, they co-authored the multi-million copy international bestseller Ikigai. How excited are you? Can I have a round of applause while I'm talking about it? And the session will be moderated by Ruchira Das, an arts leader with 25 years of experience in working on projects in India and internationally. Most recently, she worked as artistic director at Art Sheila. In 2013, she founded Think Arts to facilitate high-quality transformative art event for children and young people. She is currently Director, Arts India at the British Council. May I invite Francesc Miraes and Ruchira Das on stage, please.
Lovely to be here and in a new venue. Congratulations to Kolkata Literary Meet. And what a delight to be in conversation with you, Francesc.
It's a big pleasure to be with you. Thank you for preparing this wonderful session, and thank you to everyone who came today in this wonderful garden. Thank you very much.
This is your second time in Calcutta, you said?
Yes, this is my second time in Calcutta. Last time I was in the festival, but it was years ago.
Okay.
I had the opportunity to see the house of Tagore, I think, being here. And this time is shorter, but it's always a pleasure to come back to the capital of literature in India.
Wonderful. I'm sure we're all delighted to hear you talk about our city so fondly. So maybe, since we spoke about the past, maybe let's begin from there, many years ago. And if you could talk a little bit about your journey from being a publisher, traveler, and then writer, and what has that been like?
Yes, thank you. After many years, without having any clue of my purpose or something like that, I was just a traveler. I worked here and there. I was working in many NGOs. And then I studied German language and literature in university in Barcelona and in Germany. And that brought me to work as a translator of books. By that time, the books coming from Germany were like 20 years forward in topics like new psychology, spirituality, self-help, development, all that. From this translator work, maybe I translated 100 books. I started working as a publisher, editor and publisher, and then I discovered that I was very unhappy going to the office every day. I didn't like the politics of the office because there was a situation of mobbing from the old employees to the new ones, and I was the newest one, and going there was a big suffering for me. And then I did what millions of Westerners have done when they feel lost. They go to India. They go to India in search for inspiration. And it was 1999, so long ago. Yes, and the country I found has nothing to do with now. It's another planet. But it was very inspiring. I was like 45 days. So he's been living in Japan since 20 years, and he's from character more Japanese than the Japanese. He's exactly what you expect from Japanese. And since I was a teenager, I was always fond on India, and my readings were many books of Jiddu Krishnamurti, Ramana Maharshi. Before that, reading Kipling and the book of Siddhartha, and then discovering new authors. And for me, India was always my main point of interest as a reader. And then when I traveled here for the first time, I felt at home from the first moment that I belonged to this place, or that it was familiar to me.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. And it is, I think, fascinating when young people get drawn to philosophy and then can, start their journey much sooner than it being something that comes to you later in life when you're assessing your life. So since you spoke about Hector, maybe let's talk about that friendship. I think I read that you were introduced by a common friend, and
Yes, it was everything a matter of a confusion because he has a friend who is a designer of apps for telephones. And the day before coming for the second time to Japan, that I wanted to go to Kyoto to write a novel that I wrote that is called Wabi-sabi, this designer of apps, I met him accidentally. I didn't know this person. And I told him, I am going tomorrow to Tokyo, and we talked 20 minutes, and he said, you must write to Hector. You both are writers. He has written a book called A Geek in Japan. I think you will connect. You are very different, but you will connect. And then that night, I wrote to Hector Garcia, I am coming to Tokyo, and your friend says that we should meet each other. He said, okay, let's meet tomorrow in one of these tiny bars that there are in Tokyo for four people, the micro bars. They are in the center of Shinjuku. And after 2 hours talking, Hector said, how many years have you been friend with my friend? And I said, I've only talking with him 20 minutes. And he said, if I had known, I wouldn't have answered your mail.
wow, so clearly it was one of those things that just had to be. They were meant to be, and your friend was...
Yes, in literature, there is a matter of chance always.
Yeah.
When I was publisher, sometimes we were trying to promote very hard a title, a novel, an essay, and maybe the author was very important and we were investing a lot of money and nothing happens. And then you can write something that you think that is for a very small public, and the world seems to be expecting that. So chance is always in the equation.
Of course. So how was it? I mean, I know that, I think I read that you were taking a walk in the park when you were discussing philosophy
Yes.
and chanced upon Ikigai.
There was this first meeting with Hector that was funny, but then we had sympathy for each other and we started talking once a week. We still do it. Normally it's on Monday at 8:15 because he's a very square-headed person. On Monday,
whose time?
in the morning,
Your time.
my time, and for him is the afternoon, more or less. And then I invited him to write his own novel, thing that he did, and he published in Spain. And from them, we've been like 8 years speaking every Monday. And I go once a year to Japan to be with him, and sometimes he comes to Barcelona too. And normally we work, he's a very scientific brain, and I am more the storyteller. So when we make a book, maybe he's putting some statistics, some discoveries, and I am writing the little lives of the people who are there.
That's wonderful. So clearly you found a rhythm because, you're working across, so many miles and totally different, kind of people, but clearly fundamentally drawn to the same thing and believe in the same thing. But were there any challenges? I mean, was it frustrating to wait every Monday to have to talk, or?
No, it's nice. When something else happens, we can talk by WhatsApp. He normally doesn't answer emails and doesn't answer also the WhatsApp because he's like Asperger person. He recognizes that, and he likes to be alone with his things. He discovers many books. He's always discovering new things. He's a great researcher. And this meeting we have every week normally is for writing and editing.
Several other thinkers and philosophers, including scientists and writers. So was that a deliberate attempt to sort of talk about the universality of this concept and the fact that it exists, it has been spoken about earlier?
This is something that I learned as a reader from Milan Kundera. Milan Kundera became very famous in Europe with the unbearable lightness of being, maybe in India too. It was a surprise because as a publisher, a novel with this title, you think it's going to sell 10 copies. It's such a philosophical and complicated title. I don't even now understand the title. But it was a success. And when I was reading this book and other books of Milan Kundera, I saw that he was very generous sharing the things he loves. So you were reading his novel, and maybe he talked about Janacek, a composer. He was talking about Nietzsche, a philosopher. He was talking about a tale, a book, a theater play. And I thought, how nice that you read this novel, and that when I close this novel, I can discover the things that the author has put on the table. And then when I started writing, I thought, I want to do the same. I not only want to write Ikigai and the four Purusharthas and all this with my own thoughts, but I want to share my discoveries and the people that I enjoy reading. And because of that, there are so many references.
No, I think they're beautiful, and I think that's that's an insight into your mind and Hector's mind, because you get to probably understand that these are the books that have inspired you, but they also add to your list of books that you want to read, or people who you want to sort of know more about. So yeah, I think that's a very valuable addition to your book, and also perhaps being more generous in terms of not owning the...
But actually, what I do with my writing is what I do in my personal life. I would say that my main hobby is giving books as a present.
Oh.
Because when I discover something that I like, for instance, I enjoyed very much reading an essay called Humankind. That is the history is from a Dutch historian, Rutger Brennan, and it's a history of the humanity through goodness, things that due to goodness have passed in this way. And when I discovered this book, maybe I gave this book to 30, 40 people that I wanted them to read it. And when you buy it by Amazon, Amazon tells you, you have ordered this book 25 times. And I said, oh yeah. And so when we write, we make the same. We have our own ideas. We explain also our stories, our conversations. But if in relation with this, there is something else that you can read, we put it there. Why not?
Thank you for doing that. And I also wanted to just, ask you about, that one concept that's mentioned where Ikigai is also something that changes. It's not something that necessarily stays constant in your life. And you mentioned that what you love doing is gifting books, but other than that, what's your Ikigai right now?
My Ikigai has been changing.
Reflection that we don't end up doing, where we sit and think about what the purpose is, what we are doing, what we are doing, but to take that moment to actually deep dive and...
Yes, and there will be many moments in life in which you lose your purpose. It happens after a big crisis. If you have some sickness that limits your body, or there is a sentimental breakdown, or a big financial problem, or you lose your job, or you have to go to another country, then you lose all your references and you must rethink again your life. So the good thing is that when you don't have your Ikigai yet, you can do what Viktor Frankl said. Viktor Frankl was visiting in the 40s and 50s and 60s many people who had lost their purpose in life. And he said, if you don't have a purpose, I give you one for free. Your purpose must be to look for your purpose. This is a purpose. So looking for your Ikigai is an Ikigai. But because it means that you are active, that you are not waiting in your sofa that Ikigai comes to you, that you are exploring people, books, documentaries, new ideas, travel here, there. So when I am talking to young people, I always tell them, go as a volunteer to any organization of your city, know as many people as possible, go to the university as a listener only, like Steve Jobs, and maybe you are in a class, I don't know, of mathematics, and it rings a bell inside you. So, and in the rest of the countries, the book is called Namaste. But it's the same book.
And it also has reference to, you keep talking about Ikigai as well, and that's a conscious...
Yes, then there is some reference, because here Hector discovered that in the four Purusharthas, there are three very similar to three circles of Ikigai. For instance, Kama. Kama is a Purushartha that is related with pleasure, with senses, with life, with what you love to do. And this is one circle of Ikigai. Artha. Artha is what you need to sustain your life. And in Ikigai we have the circle of the money. If you love doing something, how can you live from that? That's the question of many artists and many writers and many idealists. And also, we could say that the Dharma, that is a very complicated concept actually, has to do with the contribution to the world. What we learn to help other people also to evolve in their path. And because of that, Hector wrote this new chapter that is there, and there is this connection between Ikigai and the four Purusharthas.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And yes, now we'll open it up to the many people in the audience, I'm sure, who want to ask you questions. I need someone to help. I really can't see. Yeah.
Hi, I am Sahir. I have published one book, fiction, and I had to do it in the, independent publishing through Motion Press. So I wanted to actually ask you that when you started on writing as a career, how did you manage your home?
That's a very good question. Actually, to publish the first book in an independent way, it's a very good way to start. Actually, in Spain, in Spanish language, it's considered that maybe the most important modern author is Borges. Borges was a very cultivated poet, writer, essayist. He didn't win the Nobel Prize, but he deserved that. And his first book was a poem anthology. He published himself, and he sold 112 copies, I think. And many years after, when he was very famous, he was looking for these copies because he wanted to know who were these readers that relied on him. So this is a very good way to start. In my experience, I started my career publishing one book for children that was Lost in Mumbai, and one book for youngsters that was a haiku for Alice. After that, I wanted to step into the literature for adults, and nobody wanted to publish me, nobody. So I was 4 years moving the same manuscripts, and it was no. And it was after those 4 years that I thought, okay, nobody wants my novels, let's write what I know better. That is the self-help and the books of non-fiction. That it was what I was working as a translator and publisher, and I started publishing under a pen name, a pseudonym, my first books. And the first book with pseudonym, it was the bestseller of the publishing house during 10 years. But nobody wanted my novel. So the career of an author sometimes is the intersection between two things. One thing is what you want from life, and another thing is what life wants from you. And in the crossing point, there is your literary Ikigai. Thank you.
Hola, hola, aquí, ahí, hola,
Thank you.
hola,
I am a bit short.
Està bien, està bien. Soc Shivam, benvinguts a Calcuta.
Muchas gracias.
¿Qué tal? Bueno, he escrito una pregunta para ti y ahora te leo en inglés. ¿Está bien?
Sí, perfecto.
In a world where young people are under constant pressure to achieve success quickly, navigate societal expectations like financial stability and career progression, and deal with the distractions of a fast-paced digital environment, how can they focus on discovering and truly living their Ikigai? Additionally, what role can parents, the education system and society play in helping the upcoming generation face these challenges and find their Ikigai at an earlier stage in their life?
Thank you. This is a very complex question, but let's try to explain it. Actually, young people are the people more attached to Ikigai because when you are young, all the paths are open, all the possibilities are in front of you. Actually, I changed my career, my studies in university 4 or 5 times. I studied journalism and then I tried to study psychology. I was changing all the time. So when you are young, you are basically an explorer. And the problem is how to fit this explorer that is every young person in a very squared system like the educational system. Maybe it's more complicated now than when I was 20, because by that time you were given a list with maybe 30 possibilities, but now there are hundreds. So the problem is how to cope with so many options without feeling lost. And my answer is know yourself first, because if we go to the circle of Ikigai or of talent, what I am good at, normally our Ikigai has to do with some gift that we have internally very strong. For instance, if you are a very creative person and you are able to have many ideas, then you have a clue. And then if you are fascinated, I don't know, by design or by a given field, then you know that you are creative and that you want to work in this kind of environment. So you go approaching what is your Ikigai. But I think there is no other way than trying many things and knowing many people, because maybe one day you go with a photograph of birds and you are with this person only by curiosity, and then you discover something that is important for you. But it's a process. I would say that all the great entrepreneurs, men and women, they have tried many different things before doing something big. So you must fail many times and you must know yourself, and it will come the time in which you will notice that you are in the right way, and then go ahead and put all your energy there. Thank you. Then in the front.
It's lovely to have you here. Always read your book, but it's lovely to see you in person and understand where Ikigai actually comes from. My question is for young wannabe, if I may say, authors, not really authors, but somebody trying to write something. Like I've always tried to write, I've wanted to write, but you know, you just kind of have that block and you just don't know how to go forward, in spite of the fact that you may have taken a few classes on how to write a book and attended, you know, various these little things that tells you how to write something that you want to. But how would you suggest, like, because you also from, you know, you jumped from other things into writing one fine day.
Yes.
What would your suggestion be to kind of get into writing?
Yes. Actually, one of my jobs every 4 or 5 months is to organize some creative writing camp. I do it with a very old writer and we do it together. And there you see all kinds of writers. There are people who love writing, but they don't have a special gift. They just like telling stories, or maybe they want to write their biography and they do it and they are humble with that. The problem is when somebody wants to make a profession out of that, because then the possibility is 1% or 0.1%, depending on your expectations. It happens the same with football. So in Spain, every child plays football, but only 1 in a million can play in Real Madrid or Barcelona. And in the world of literature, it's the same. First thing is to get started. And I think the best book published about writing is the one of Stephen King called On Writing. And he said, to become a writer, you only need 2 things. to read a lot and to write a lot. If you read a lot, you will find many things that you can rope from here. You can steal this kind of dialogues and this kind of descriptions and this way of making explanations. And if you write a lot, you will improve your style, you find yourself, your own voice there. The problem is that many young writers write a first book and they think they have to win the Nobel Prize or something, and they don't understand that this is a process. So when you are getting some kind of acknowledgement, is because you have written maybe your 10th manuscript or 50th. Yes, so I would say write only if you feel that you cannot live without doing that. And then write your first book, go to the end, because curiously, maybe 95% of the books are started but never finished. So first, when a young writer talks to me anxious to know if he or she will be successful, I said, finish your book. When you have your book finished, try to correct it as good as possible. Go to a professional, do some editing, some corrections, get feedback from other writers, from other people, and from there try to bring it to the world. You can publish yourself in Amazon or where you want, and go for the second, and when you have the second, go for the third. And if you have passion, in the end you will reach your audience. I am sure for that. I don't know if it will be a very big audience or a smaller audience, but you will have yours. Thank you.
Good evening. When you talk about Purusharth, do you find any commonality with the way of being a samurai?
That's interesting. Nobody has asked me that. I think it's a very difficult question, because even I have traveled to Japan like 12 times and I've made a lot of anthropological investigations. I don't know so well the samurai world. Hector knows a bit better. For me, what I have learned from the samurais was last summer I was guiding a group in Japan through Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, the classical route. And it was incredibly hot, the weather. It was very, very hot. And when we were in Kyoto, it was unstandable almost. And one of the guides, who was very learned about samurais, he said, if you are feeling that you cannot stand this weather, think like a samurai. A samurai, when he was feeling hot, he was saying to himself the opposite. I feel so cold, please, a bit of sun, I feel so cold. And then you repeat this all the time, and in the end, you can convince, you can say, have a suggestion to your mind that you are feeling the opposite. The same is when you feel very sad, but you oblige to yourself to find facts of gratitude. So that's what I learned from the samurais, but actually I am not expert at all on his way of living or on his moral. But I don't know. From a first sight, I don't see many comparisons that I can tell here between the samurais and the Purusharth. Thank you. I think there was somebody here.
I can take one more question.
Hi. Actually, as a 24-year-old, currently I am at this point of life where I really have to start a business, and from my inner part of my heart, I really want to travel the world, and I really want to put myself into a creative background, like taking notes from different culture, traveling the world, and etc. So I am currently making myself confused as what do I have to do, like do I need to start a business or do I need to work or can I just put all that beside and I'm just start traveling around?
Thank you. We can have the last question there. The last question there, yes. I think that it's very practical to have two ikigais at the same time in your case. Because if you leave everything to try to start a business, normally in the beginnings, a business gives zero or near zero. So what you could do is a kind of transition, having a job that doesn't take all your hours, all your time, but that can give you what you need to sustain yourself, and start dedicating part-time energy to this dream, to this business that you have in mind. So, for instance, working in the mornings in something that gives you enough money to go by, to stay more or less paying the things you need to pay, and in the afternoons, in the evenings, dedicate as much time as possible to your business. And in 2, 3, 4 years, you will be able to do the switch. It happens very much with therapists. I know many people who, for instance, work in a bank, work in a shop, work as a teachers, and they want to be psychologists. They want to be therapists because they want to work with the suffering of others. And then I always tell them, it's a process more or less of 4 years. So if you already have studied that, you need time to invest so that people know you, maybe give some sessions for free, to be in gatherings with other therapists, to start doing some work online, giving things to the community, and then you start having the first client, and then you have 2 or 3, and in 4 years you have done the switch for that. So it's a lot of effort, but I think it's better to do it like this, not to put 100% of your energy in this new business unless you have a lot of savings. If you don't have the savings, be conservative and run 2 lives at the same time until you see that you can change definitely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we have a mic in the front? We have one last question from the lady on the
Good evening, sir.
Yes, I think she was waiting a long time. Yes. No, they are bringing the microphone. Thank you.
It's a privilege to ask you a question directly. So just wanted your thoughts on, you mentioned Wabi-sabi, and I've also heard you talk about Shirin Yoku, and today we are in such a beautiful setting, we're sitting in the gardens. So wanted you to expand a little about the importance of Wabi-sabi and Shirin Yoku in the pursuit of Ikigai.
Thank you. Wabi-sabi, we have talked a bit about that. It's a aesthetical term and a psychological term. Normally, wabi-sabi, we find it reflected in the Japanese arts. For instance, the shodo, these circles that are unfinished, they represent the essence of wabi-sabi. Or the ikebana, where there is not a very symmetric order of lines, or many other things that the Japanese do. And in our daily life, wabi-sabi basically is accepting imperfection, loving our imperfection, but not as an end of the trip, but as a beginning of a progress. You know that you are imperfect, and then you start growing in some direction. You are working on yourself, work in progress. The Shinrin Yoku is a concept totally different. It means forest bathing, and it became popular in the 80s in Japan because there were some universities investigations about what happened with people who live in the cities, and they go once a week to a deep forest to walk 4, 5, 6 hours. What happened with their health? And they discovered that people going to the forest once a week, they were much healthier than the rest because they had even more NK cells, natural killers against cancer. but also these people slept better, they had better mental condition, etc. And basically forest bathing is the therapy of going to nature, like this wonderful place where we are, and enjoying being there without any other purpose. So it's no use going to the forest if you are all the time with your cell phone, if you are responding to WhatsApp messages. No, you must be one with nature, and then you will have many benefits to your body and to your mind. Thank you.